We begin our guest segments with a deeply important topic: suicide loss and the urgent need for response or resources to support those left behind.
Losing someone to suicide leaves loved ones grappling with shock, grief, and often a financial burden. Dave Aro, a board member of 6 Feet Over, and Zosia Eppensteiner, the CEO of the Community Foundation of Marquette County, join this conversation now. And really this conversation about suicide, loss, and supporting survivors. We started this conversation with you about 3 years ago, Dave, and it's been important to us on Upper Michigan Today to continue this conversation because the issue of suicide continues to impact our community. Since we first really started this conversation with you about 3 years ago, what kind of impacts and work have you seen and been involved with 6 Feet Over?
Well, if you recall, this started when I lost my friend and neighbor to suicide and found out that there wasn't really resources for people. And, working with Zosia and the Community Foundation, we were able to establish a fund to help support survivors of suicide loss with things like cleaning up after a suicide and funeral support and other expenses, but also be able to provide some other support to help them with dealing with their grief. Could be support, could be grief support, could be referral to trauma therapy and things like that. So since we started that program 3 years ago, we've raised probably close to $100,000 for the county. We've probably spent 2/3 of that so far. In the last 12 months alone, rolling 12 months, there's been about 10 families that have been assisted. And of the 10, 8 of them required financial assistance. So there's definitely been a need that we didn't know was there. So when you start something new, you kind of never know what's going to happen with it. We thought there was a need, but we wasn't sure how much of a need there would be. But I think when you look at the number of suicides we have in our county, which averages between 20 and 25 a year, and we're helping 10 people, that's a pretty big percentage.
It is, and I feel like that number is significant regardless. And I feel like it's something that many of us don't realize is happening kind of frequently around us in our community. Zosia, where does the Community Foundation step in and support this mission?
It's really a community-wide effort. Marquette County Community Foundation connects donors with community needs, and this is where we stepped into the conversation. And making those connections between the donors, between our community partners, not just locally like the health department or cleaning companies or law enforcement or volunteers, but also with the nonprofit, the 6 Feet Over, that's a statewide nonprofit that provides the services. So the coordination of that and just helping make those connections is a big part of the Community Foundation's job here. And I think that's really significant here because there's the real impacts of the funding and the resources that obviously were made and continue to be made available for Marquette County individuals and families through the fund. But it's also the building of the network of people who are willing to talk about it, who are willing to come together, to look for solutions to support one another. To recognize that it's something that we need to keep talking about, and that network alone is what gives our community strength to kind of move forward and see how else we can be supportive of another and show up in a way with love, with support, with resources, with particularly in situations where we need it the most.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't a pretty topic to talk about, but it matters, and it's really important to talk about it. Dave, what kind of, have you even seen a shift in our local community, or how have you seen things change by putting your story out there and by coming on to shows like Upper Michigan Today to talk about suicide, loss, and mental health?
Well, I think first of all, thank you and Elizabeth when she was here, and now John, for having us on, because it is a hard topic. And I know it's something that in a show like yours in particular, that you try to be more obedient with the community and do fun stories, but to be able to have a serious conversation about this is so important. So definitely appreciate all that you guys have done, because you've been here since the very beginning, and can't say enough about that. From a personal perspective, I also share my story on social media, and what I have found is that a number of people have appreciated the ability to be able to talk to somebody else about it, or to comment on the things that I do, because they've been able to share their stories. I've had at least 2 people that have said that because of the stories that we're sharing here and on social media, it's made them rethink some things and probably prevented at least 2 suicides. So that alone makes it all worthwhile. But also within the community, you know, loss survivors have the 3rd highest suicide rate behind veterans and the LGBTQ plus community. So that is something I don't think people think about either. So being able to give support to loss survivors, being able to give them a little more of a voice and more resources is actually helping prevent suicide.
Dave, what has the community support been like from 3 years ago until now, with maybe helping with financial with people who may have experienced that, with getting funeral costs and things like that? Like, what other ways have people have contributed to helping others out?
Well, it's been really interesting because a lot of the people that have donated to the fund have been loss survivors, and they have had their own experience, and they know what they went through, and they want to try to help other people not have to go through the things that they did, because they didn't have the resources. So that's been a big part of how we've been able to continue to do what we're doing. And again, I mean, anybody that's gone through this knows that it's really challenging to find people to talk to about it. There are some loss survivor groups in the county. There's one in Ishpeming and one in Marquette that are promoted by the health department, which are also very important for people. But there's also some online communities as well. But again, getting the conversation out there has been a big part of it. But from a support perspective, you know, it's been really amazing to see the community come out and say, you know, we're starting to get it because we're talking about it more, and people are more comfortable talking about it, and that's huge.
I think too that Marquette County is the one county that has the resources for it, you know, to when they're needed, is really a statement to our ability to come together and mobilize and go beyond those financial resources that are needed, but again, creating that network of support, right? So it's not on one person who's willing to be open and vulnerable and sharing their story, but it's a matter of all of us doing our part. You telling the story, the community foundation providing the vehicle for people to donate to, our health departments, you know, the other partners that I mentioned, 6 Feet Over, that are so critical in the work and working together with the shared goal of supporting our community.
And talking with the 2 of you off camera, it sounds like the Community Foundation has been crucial to the growth and expansion of this resource. We do have to take a commercial break, but we will pick up this conversation and talk about the growth when we come back.